as I just wanted to show you something on my site. I'll mention this a little bit at the end as well. If you haven't yet started building a Joomla website, or if you have some other website building solution and you've been curious about Joomla and would like to learn more, can I encourage you to consider our training course. We have a free course which will give you all the basics, which is actually called The Basics, as well as this advanced course which is called Beyond the Basics. Right now we have a series of about 150 training videos in here, and it's $97 for a lifetime subscription. We are looking to change that to a yearly subscription of $97 per year, so if you are interested in getting some Joomla training, now is a fantastic time to get in with that, as it is just a one-off buy. And I'm going to be joined today by Daniel from SiteGround. Let me tell you also a little bit about SiteGround and a special offer they have today for you. SiteGround is a leading Joomla web host with tens of thousands of Joomla sites. They provide all the features that you would normally expect from a web host, your email and statistics and all the general things, plus plenty of space for your site and plenty of monthly bandwidth, as well as a whole lot more, and some of those extra things you're going to hear about today. They too have a special offer for you today, and this is, well, I can't think of any nice word to say. It's really quite silly. $2.95 a month, you can get quality Joomla hosting, and we get this question a lot. How can I get cheap Joomla hosting? I was like, well, you can't. It's hard to host a Joomla website. There's a lot of technical things that you need to know, but SiteGround is so far the only budget hosting organisation that not only knows what they're talking about when it comes to Joomla, but provides good customer service to boot. There are some cheaper hosts out there, but when it actually comes time to getting any support, it all goes out the window. So that's a terrific deal that you can find more about at www.siteground.com/webinar. And again, at the end, we're going to mention that in case you don't get that now. One of the members from SiteGround will also put that URL in the chat window. If you've not been on a webinar before, there is a little panel off to the right-hand side of your screen, and that's where you can enter your questions. We will take those at the end. Just down towards the bottom right, you can see the chat conversations there. Well, now it's time for me to pass over to our presenter today, Daniel Kanchev, who is the Joomla performance guru at SiteGround. Like I said, this is very good timing because we have been getting a lot of questions in our forum lately about site performance, so I'm very excited to discuss this topic. And I should mention that a lot of people, myself included, solve speed problems by throwing a lot of money at it. When my own site or other sites that I've been involved in, Joomla sites, tend to get a bit slow, I tend to fix that problem by just getting a better hosting solution, more RAM or something like that, which can be very costly. There is actually a much better solution, as you'll find out today. And there will be tips and tricks both for beginners as well as advanced users. And so no matter where you're at with your Joomla journey, I'm sure you'll get something out of today. I'd also like to point out that when you leave the webinar today, there will be a survey that pops up on your screen, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you could spend a minute or two going through that, as that feedback's very valuable to us to determine what topics that we might include for future webinars. And so, without any further ado, can I welcome Daniel to our presentation? I just need to click a couple of buttons here to get him going. And Daniel, we should be able to hear you now. Hi there.
Hello everyone. I hope you hear me clear and fine. Thank you all for joining us today. As Richard already mentioned, the purpose of the webinar is to find out how to speed up your Joomla websites.
Terrific. Well, with any second, we should be able to see your screen. I can see that now. So, Daniel, over to you. Ready to go.
Yeah, great. And let me first introduce myself. My name is Daniel Kanchev, and I am 24 years old. So there is just a technical problem.
Okay, it looks like we've actually just lost Daniel there. I can't see him online now. Let's give that a minute or two for him to just get connected up again. And I will just tell you also that we're recording today's webinar. The recordings don't always work out too well, so I can't guarantee that we can ever give you a replay of the webinars, but if we do, we stick them up on our YouTube sites. I've got a site here at www.youtube.com/user/build a Joomla website, and I'll just bring that up for you. So you might like to make a note of that, as that's where I will attempt to put the replay. We're also going to try and share this video on the SiteGround YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user/SiteGround. Not sure how we'll go with that. YouTube are a bit funny about putting the same video up in two different places. I'm going to give that another couple of minutes to see if we can get Daniel back on. He's showing up now, so let me pass that back over to him. Hey, we lost you there. Are you back on now, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm back. I hope you can hear me fine now.
I can. We're seeing your screen now, so if you can get that playing, that'd be great.
Okay, so let's get started. So my name is Daniel Kanchev, and I'm 24 years old. I started using Joomla more than 7 years ago, and I would like to say that I'm really fascinated by the platform. Actually, it was the Joomla content management system which fostered my interest in open source projects and open source communities. I have been with SiteGround for the last 4.5 years, and I became a technical support supervisor 3 years ago. Since then, I have been working on various site optimization projects. I will tell you more about some of them during the presentation. In my spare time, I love to travel around the world with my friends, and I also am addicted to extreme sports. Speaking of extreme sports, there is one thing that's very important for both building a successful Joomla website and being good at extreme sports, and that is speed. So why exactly is speed important for your Joomla website? We live in a fast-moving age, and this makes us not very good at tolerating things that move slowly. This is specifically valid when talking about information technology and the internet. When you have a fast website, your search engine results are improved. Search engines such as Google and Bing have announced that websites' loading speed is a major factor for search results. In addition, the faster your website, the happier your clients and visitors will be. Speed also affects your visitors' behavior. For example, if I have to wait more than 3, maximum 4 seconds for a product page to load, then I will most probably close the site or never visit it again. Another benefit is that if you have a really big website, you will save cache from servers and you will be able to handle more visitors. So the key to a faster website is to make a list of performance optimizations and then implement the same one at a time. So don't worry, it's not rocket science and you can do it on your end. There are two main categories of optimizations. The first one, which we're going to be discussing, is application level optimizations, and the second one is server level optimizations. The first one is directly related to the Joomla CMS. In other words, I will tell you some more things about how to configure your Joomla application so that the website can load faster. The server level optimizations category provides instructions how to set up your hosting servers for faster Joomla websites. Before I provide more information, I would like to show you a short video. On the video, you will see two versions of one and the same Joomla 3 website. The site also uses the popular Virtual Mart e-commerce extension and a heavily customized template. In addition, the application uses many Joomla extensions, and this way the loading speed is also increased. So let me just play the video for you. On the right side, you see the optimized version of the website, and it loaded for just 1 second. The other version of the website needed more than 4 seconds to load. So as you can see, the optimized version was displayed much quicker, and the non-optimized version is pretty slow. In my opinion, that's amazing, and I will show you how to configure your Joomla websites so that they can load in less than 2 seconds. To speed up your site, you should always make sure that you have the latest Joomla installed on your account. Joomla developers constantly improve the PHP code of the application, which makes it faster and also provides more functionalities. If you compare Joomla 1.0 and version 3 of the application, you will see that the latest release is almost 2 or 3 times faster. Here at SiteGround, we know that very often people don't have the time to upgrade their Joomla websites. That is why we have a free automatic system which detects your Joomla websites and upgrades them whenever a new version is released. Most of the people who rely on Joomla install many components and plugins. That is one of the great things about the system. You can extend the application very easily. However, extensions can also slow down your website. That's why you should choose them wisely. Here is what I do when I build a new Joomla website. I make a list of the extensions that I would like to use, and I install them one at a time. Every time I perform an installation from the Joomla administrative area, I access the website and I check the loading speed. If it's affected, then there is something wrong with the extension. You can always search for another one or temporarily disable it until you find out the problem and resolve it. I also regularly check the installed components and plugins and remove the ones that are not needed anymore. Of course, it's also advisable to upgrade all extensions whenever a new version is released. Your Joomla templates are also directly related to your site's loading speed. The design you choose is surely one of the most important things that attracts new visitors. However, sometimes fancy templates cause websites to load slow. That's why my advice is to carefully check the front page and remove any sections that you don't need. For example, you may have a bakery shop website and a template which has a weather plugin. You probably don't need this particular functionality of the template and you can disable it. When you do this, you will achieve 2 things. First, you will simplify your template, and second, the page loading speed will be decreased. To speed up your site, you can also check your front page and reduce the number of internal and external links. If you really need to show your clients many links to resources on your site, you can create a sitemap and then provide one link to the sitemap. Another very common issue with the Joomla front page is that people often load content from remote servers. This is sometimes a problem because the remote servers may be inaccessible, and then the Joomla front page will simply not load at all. Now, let's go straight to the application level optimizations. As I mentioned, this category includes information how to change the settings of the Joomla CMS itself to speed up your site. The first thing you can do is to enable compression in order to reduce the size of your Joomla pages. The result is that your visitors' web browsers will download and show the pages faster. Suppose that you have several Word text documents and the total size of the files is about 50 megabytes. If you want to send them to a friend, you can create a zip package on your end and actually send only one file. This way you will send less information, and the only thing that has to be done is to extract the zip file. The same is valid for Joomla websites. The only requirement is to have mod gzip or deflate on your hosting server. Compression is natively supported by Joomla, so you don't need to install any extensions to use it. You simply have to enable compression from the Joomla administrative area. To do this, just go to Site, Global Configuration, and select the Server tab. You will then see the page which is displayed on this slide, and you have to simply enable gzip page compression. Click on the Yes button and then save the settings. That's it. Compression is now enabled and your site will load faster. That's not something which is something that can speed up your website pretty much, but it works just fine. The next thing, which is natively supported by Joomla, is page caching. But what exactly is page caching? Whenever you access your Joomla site, the system has to perform several tasks to show you the requested page. Joomla checks the plugins and modules that have to be loaded on the page you requested. It also loads the selected template for the page, and then the page is formatted. Page caching allows you to skip these steps. When it is enabled, the Joomla system creates copies of the requested pages. The copies are saved in the Joomla cache. So the next time someone opens a page on your site, it will be loaded from the cache, which is several times faster. To enable the Joomla cache, you should access the administrative area of the application and then go to the plugin manager. The only thing that you should do is to find the system cache plugin and enable it from the button next to the plugin itself. Then you need to configure page caching from Site Global Configuration panel. Select the System tab and change the cache settings exactly as shown on this slide. It is very important to set the cache to conservative caching. We have tested several different configurations, and this setup provides maximum speed performance. Now that your website uses compression and page caching, it is time to tell you about some more application level optimizations. Most of the hosting providers use the Apache web server. There are special files called htaccess files that allow you to modify the default behavior of the web server. That is useful because you can create client-side caching policies. When you access a website, your browser downloads many resources to your local computer. For example, browsers download images from your website. Then, when you access the same web page, your browser connects to the server and asks it if the images have changed. Other examples include audio files, images, Flash content, JavaScript, and CSS files. The following htaccess code forces browsers to cache static content. By the way, presentation will be uploaded and we'll send you links to it, so there is no need to write down the exact links on your end. All you need to do is download the code from the link and add it to your htaccess file under the webroot folder of your site. If you're not sure how to do this, ask your hosting provider to do it for you. If you're a SiteGround customer, you can skip this step because we have already added similar rules to the global Apache configuration. Here is just a part of the code, and I would like to say a few words about how it works. There are three main directives in this code. The first one is the eType directive, and it tells browsers that an image or another unit does not need to be reloaded. So if someone accesses your website and the images are already downloaded on the computer, they will not be re-downloaded. This way, the page will load much faster. The second directive is expires header. This rule allows you to set different expiration times for different file types. For example, you can tell browsers to cache images from your site for 1 week. The last important directive is the output filter. What it does is it simply removes blank lines from the HTML output, making it smaller. There are several other things that you can do to speed up your site. The things I have mentioned so far are natively supported by the Joomla CMS. The rest of the application level optimizations are not. Luckily, there are tools that you can use to do the things listed on this slide. I already mentioned that you have to resize your pictures. This is needed because the bigger pictures you upload, the slower your pages will be. Visitors who use slow internet connections need more time, usually 4 to 6 seconds, to load a page which includes big pictures. The same is valid for pages that include many JavaScript and CSS files. That is why you also have to minify and combine your JavaScript and CSS files. Combining these files means that instead of loading 7 JavaScript files and 11 CSS files for a default Joomla application, you can load just one JavaScript file and one CSS file. This way the number of HTTP requests is reduced and your pages will load faster. There is also another technique called image smushing. Basically, you compress the images and the quality of the pictures is not affected. To smush your images, you can use the following website, smush.it. It is part of Yahoo project and it's very simple to use it. You just access the website, upload your images, and then download the optimized versions. So that's it. To resize your pictures, you have to use local software on your computer. For example, Adobe Photoshop and Fireworks works just fine. The only question which remains is how to combine your JavaScript and CSS file. The good news is that you can use Joomla extensions to do this. Here is a list of the most popular extensions that allow you to optimize your JavaScript and CSS files. We highly recommend the first one, JCH Optimized, because it has a nice user-friendly web interface and the settings can just be set to default settings. The other one is JBatello and you can download it and test it on your end. Both of the plugins minify and compress files as well. I would like to show you how to enable JCH Optimize and what settings to use. Download the plugin from the Joomla extensions directory and then install it from the administrative area of the application. By default, the plugin is disabled, so you should first enable it. To do this, go to the plugin manager, find JCH Optimize and click the Enable button right next to it. Once you do this, click the plugin itself so that you can alter the settings. You have to change only the basic options and the sprite generator settings. Once you configure the plugin, as shown on this slide, save the settings. From now on, your Joomla site will combine JavaScript and CSS files, and image sprites will also be generated. My advice is to test two different Joomla extensions. It is possible to achieve faster loading speed and different results when another plugin is used. However, we performed some tests on default Joomla installations and highly customized Joomla installations, and we found out that JCH Optimized is so far the best plugins for Joomla. There is one more way to compress, combine, and cache your JavaScript and CSS files, and it is called Google Mod PageSpeed. What exactly is this? This is an Apache open source module which is used for the exact same purposes. The module needs to be installed on the web hosting server and it will combine the static resources on your site. It will also optimize the HTML output. So if you manage your own servers, make sure to check this module and install it on your end. I would like to also mention that by default the module is available on SiteGround servers and our clients can enable it directly from the Super Cacher plugin which is available in your cPanel. The next thing that you have to do is to check your website loading speed. I'm sure that some of you would like to ask how to check it, and there is an easy way to do this by using one of the following tools. Basically what you do is type your website URL and the tools analyze the website, the resources, their size, if they're compressed, if caching is enabled, and other settings. You will finally see a report and you can check the report and follow some of the recommendations. Here you see how application level optimizations actually improve the page load time for the default Joomla application. What we did is to install a default Joomla application and then enabled cache compression and added the htaccess rules. Finally, we installed JCH Optimized and tested the website several times. As you can see, a brand new Joomla site needs 1.6 seconds to load when it is not optimized. As a result, we managed to achieve a performance boost of about 60%. So when all of the application level optimizations are enabled, the loading speed of the website is only 1 second, and the total page size is also drastically decreased. So unfortunately, default Joomla websites are not commonly used, and usually people install a lot of extensions and templates. So the application level optimizations are usually not enough. The next thing is server level optimizations, but before I start with server level optimizations, I would like to clarify that some of the things I will mention are complex. So if something is not clear, ask questions and I will do my best to answer them at the end. If some of you are professional developers or system administrators and you manage your own servers, my advice is to follow the instructions, because this way you can really speed up your site and make it blazing fast. For the rest of you who use shared hosting and you don't have access to your servers, please get familiar with the technologies and look for hosting companies that offer these modern configurations. The first thing that you can do on server level is to enable CDN for your website. What exactly is CDN? CDN means Content Delivery Network, and it works for your visitors all over the world. For example, if your hosting server is in Miami and you have visitors from Tokyo, they will not be able to load the website as fast as you do in the States. That is due to the fact that different internet service providers route the packets differently, and those packets need to be delivered to the recipients. So what CDN does for you is it creates multiple copies of your website for different parts of your website, and then those copies are distributed all over the world. So when someone from Sydney accesses your website, the website is loaded from the closest data center, which could be in Australia or someone in Asia. Another thing which CDN does for you is to keep malicious requests off your website. CDN will also make your website faster because, as I've mentioned, the resources will be downloaded from the closest data center and not from the original web server. CDN will help you to remove the load on your servers because actually files will not be read from your hard drives. CDN appears both to Google and your visitors, and Google actually uses some algorithms to detect if CDN is enabled for your domain name. So if you have CDN enabled, then your Google rankings will be improved. The following two providers, Cloudflare and Incapsula, are, in our opinion, one of the most popular, and they provide great service. Cloudflare is available on our servers for free, and you can enable it with just several clicks. And Incapsula actually have a Joomla plugin which you can install and manage the CDN directly from the Joomla administrative area. It is to you to choose one of the providers, and my advice is again to perform some tests because you can achieve different results with different CDN providers. And the next thing that I would like to discuss is a server setup, which is specifically designed for PHP and MySQL. And as we all know, Joomla is an application which uses PHP and MySQL, and that's why your web server should be properly configured in order to handle all requests in time. Many providers simply choose a Linux distribution, install it on the server, and then that's it. That's not the right way to do it. Of course, there are some software tweaks, and they are to choose a fast and secure PHP like FastCGI. If your hosts use a similar setup, that's good. if not ask for more information about the current setup. You have always an opportunity to speed up your website by moving specific softwares into RAM. RAM is faster than hard drives. If you need to read a file and the file is stored on your hard drive, then this process is slow because hard drives are mechanical and the different parts in them move very slow. And RAM uses different technologies, so if you have to read the same file from the RAM, then you can do it really fast. That way, you can move PHP binaries to RAM and also some temporary files such as the TMP Linux directory and the MySQL Semapodir to RAM. The next thing that you can do is to move the whole MySQL server to a separate hard drive, and you can use SSD flash-based drives to do this. This way, PHP and MySQL will work much faster than a default setup, and MySQL queries will actually be executed for no more than half of a second. So there are some more things about PHP and MySQL optimization, and this is opcode and object caching. This is directly related to the PHP setup on your web server. So what exactly is opcode and object caching? There are several technologies that allow you to do this, and there are PHP extensions to do this. So APC, Alternative PHP Cache, is one of them. It is very popular and is used on SiteGround servers. Memcached is also another technology which allows you to cache certain parts of the PHP and then reuse the cached content. eAccelerator is a good technology, but it's a little bit old, so I don't advise you to use it, but if you have no other option, you can always install eAccelerator. It's better than nothing. Now, I would like to explain how Joomla usually interacts with your MySQL database and what actually happens when object caching is enabled. The example which I would like to use is related to Memcached. So suppose that you have a website for bicycles and there is a visitor who opens your website and then goes straight to the search functionality. He needs, for example, spare parts for his bike, and that's why he types certain words there. When he presses the enter button, the Joomla application actually accesses your MySQL database and it checks many tables and rows for the specified text strings. Then the MySQL database generates the results. They are returned to the Joomla application. Finally, the results page is generated and returned to your visitor. That's how every request is handled. But there is no need to do this every time. What object caching does is it creates copies of the results in our case, but it is valid for all kinds of objects, and those results are stored in the Memcached server. So the next time someone accesses the same page and needs the same PHP objects that have been fetched from the database, those objects can be taken from the Memcached server. Well, this speeds up websites because MySQL databases are queried very often, and if one query uses a particular table, then the next one have to wait for the information to be released, and there is no need to wait. You can get the results directly from the Memcached server. The other important thing, as I've said, is PHP opcode caching, and it's related to the way PHP works. Usually, PHP works the following way. You access your Joomla application and the PHP scripts on your server has to be executed. The PHP scripts contain some PHP code, and this PHP code is understandable by developers, but the computer actually does not understand the code. It has to be transformed to opcode and then it can be executed. So in order to transform the PHP code to the so-called opcode, PHP has to perform some extensive tasks, and this is executed every time a new request is made. So scanning, flexing, parsing, compilation, there are all stages that you don't need because the final result is one and the same. What opcode caching is that we can actually skip those stages and get directly to the opcode. This opcode is some binary code which is saved in the server RAM. And when your Joomla application is accessed, the code can be directly executed on the server. This is blazing fast, and when you use it, you can speed up your Joomla, for example, 2 or 3 times, depending on the size of the PHP scripts and the configuration of the PHP engine. The last thing, which is most probably one of the most successful ideas ever for optimizing a Joomla website, is reverse proxy servers. Reverse proxy servers are something which is very popular nowadays, and a lot of big companies use it. Facebook, for example, Twitter, and some of the Google services use reverse proxy servers. As I have explained, when you access your Joomla application, there is a request to your web server, and the web server has to find the different bits of information and finally display one page. Even when opcode and object caching and all the application level optimizations are configured properly, the server has to handle each and every one request. But when you have many simultaneous requests to your server, it can be overloaded. And when this happens, it becomes slow. So no matter how optimized your website is, if you have hundreds and thousands of simultaneous requests, then the server will eventually be overloaded and the new request will not be handled at all. What reverse proxies do for you is they handle the requests instead of the origin server. So, for example, you can imagine that a reverse proxy is a server which sits between your hosting server and your visitors. And when a visitor requests a page, your hosting server generates the page, and then the reverse proxy server just copies this page. So all the other users that request the same page are served by the proxy server. No requests reach your hosting server at all. The problem with this setup is that these cache copies of the website have to be invalidated. And that's very difficult with Joomla applications because Joomla applications are dynamic. And when you edit some of your articles, the Joomla application has to actually connect to the reverse proxy server and inform it that some of the content is no longer available. And this content should be changed so new users will not see outdated content. Well, in order to use reverse proxies with your Joomla websites, you have to contact a professional programmer who will be able to configure the Joomla application for you to be able to communicate with reverse proxies. And in addition, the reverse proxy itself should also be configured to be able to receive the requests from the Joomla application. Popular reverse proxies are Varnish and Nginx. You can check the websites if you're interested. And the configuration of these reverse proxies is not very straightforward, but the documentation is extensive. And if you're interested, I advise you to check the docs. And if you have some particular questions, you can ask them right now. We'll try to answer them later. So here at SiteGround, we believe that all of these solutions can actually be implemented even on shared hosting. And one of the projects that we dedicated more than 1 year to accomplish the results is called the Super Cacher. That's a tool which is available on our server directly from the cPanel, and it incorporates all of the above mentioned optimization level, server optimization levels. So we allow our customers to use custom PHP and MySQL configuration. The super cacher can be used to set up memcached and alternative PHP cache. And of course, we offer Joomla-friendly reverse proxy setup. So we basically get a default Joomla application, install one of our plugins, and boom, there you have a reverse proxy setup which can actually handle requests and invalidate content. We have tested it, and it provides hundreds of times faster websites. And I strongly advise you to check it if you're one of our customers. We tested the solution on our end, and the final results for a Joomla website which also uses the virtual marked component is that we managed to decrease the page loading speed for such a website from 5 seconds to just 1 second with all the server level optimizations and application level optimizations enabled. And we also decreased the page size 3 times. So Google PageSpeed grade for this website which we tested, and the useload grade for the same website is A, and as you can see, the site which was displayed on the video, which I played for you, loaded for just 1 second, and we can do this for 90% of the websites hosted on our servers. Well, basically, that's the most important thing, and speed actually affects not only your search rankings and your visitors' behavior, but it also makes you look professional. So finally, some key takes. Speed optimization is a process. My advice is to do it regularly. Do not just go there, change some settings and think that that will solve all of your problems. That's not how it works. You have to constantly check your website, install new extensions, look for new solutions, and discuss the page loading speed of your website with your host. Your host is there for you. They should be able to answer your questions. Always test your website. Use the tools that I mentioned to check the loading speed of your website and the results. You can analyze the reports that are generated and contact your host for support. So finally, you can choose a well-optimized host for blazing fast performance, and you can discuss the server setup with your host. Do not simply purchase web hosting from companies that tell you that their servers are optimized for Joomla. Ask them how exactly the servers are optimized, and you can ask questions related to the server optimizations that I mentioned. Basically, that's it, and now is questions time. So I would like to answer them, and I suppose that Richard will go to the questions.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that again, Daniel. With any luck, you should all be able to hear me now, and I'll just flick your screen off there for a moment. And you should now be seeing a beautiful blank, boring screen. Yes, thanks again. When I actually set up this webinar time, it's incredibly difficult to choose a time that keeps the majority of people happy, and so I was conscious of my own time here. I was conscious of time in North America where the majority of people would be connecting from, but I didn't consider your time at all, very selfishly of me. And so everybody, please appreciate that Daniel has had to stay up incredibly late or early, depending on how you look at your clock, to bring this to you today. So thanks again. Yes, it is now time, if you've got any questions, to put them in the chat. There are already a few questions there, so you don't need to add them again if you've already done so, and there's quite an interesting variety that I've already had a look at. Just while I let you do that, I'll give you a couple of minutes. And in the meantime, can I just, for the benefit of those who might have joined late, let you know that we are trying to get this recorded today. If that works, we'll put it up on our respective YouTube channels. We'll also try and get Daniel's slides up somewhere. And about this time tomorrow, you'll receive an email, hopefully with all those details in it. As part of our presentation today, SiteGround are offering a special hosting package of just $2.95 a month. I said at the start that I think it's impossible to get Joomla hosting for under about $5 a month, but it is now possible. So if you are not already a SiteGround customer, or if you have been thinking about getting some other customers if you're a developer on board, that's a terrific deal, and you can read more about that at www.siteground.com/webinar. I guess my biggest take-home point from these tips today is that through our own website, we tend to deal with beginners. We also have a number of developers who know how to build websites but just need to learn Joomla. But for those who are beginners, I think I would take a lot from today and then say, wow, I guess the main thing to keep in mind is that you need a Joomla host that know what they're talking about. And clearly you can see from Daniel's presentation there that SiteGround does know what they're talking about when it comes to speeding up your site. And there are some additional questions that we're going to go through in a moment that I think you'll find interesting as well. And I'll just reiterate for those of you who don't know our own site, I'm the owner of buildajoomlawebsite.com, and if you go there /beyond-the-basics, you'll find our intermediate course. Once you've learnt the foundations of Joomla, and we've got a free course for that, I encourage you to consider our Beyond the Basics course, which includes, I'll just very quickly scroll through, a whole bunch of stuff, including how to build a site from scratch, how to master every Joomla feature, and you can see it goes on and on. This is a massive library of training that I've built up over 5 years. And right now, we do have a no subscriptions policy. You only have to pay once to get a lifetime subscription, which includes free updates for life, priority support via our forum. A lot of people have told us that the price is worthwhile just to access our forum. We do try very hard there to give fast and comprehensive support. And so any new training that we bring out, say for Joomla 3, which we're working on at the moment, Joomla 4, which will come out late next year, will be included in that lifetime subscription. Now's a good time to buy, though, because we're starting to feel a bit of pressure with that, and we're looking to change that to a yearly subscription, which would be $97 a year instead of a $97 one-off fee. So can I encourage you to consider that? And we're now going to move to our questions. So, Daniel, if you're ready, I will begin. There's some good ones. I'm going to try and go through all of them, but some of them are more or less repeats of others, so I might combine those as we go along. The first one surprises me. Scott asks, why are responsive websites so slow? I don't know if that's been my experience. Daniel, do you find that's the case?
Well, sometimes the loading speed depends on many factors that you can't control. For example, I just had a problem with my internet service provider, and the latency for my connection to one of our servers was incredibly high. So even though a website was properly optimized, I was not able to open it for just 2 or 3 seconds. In such cases, my advice is to always use a proxy server or access the site from another computer to check it. So basically, I believe that the responsiveness of websites can be checked in various ways, but to be sure that there is no problem with your website, you can always test from several locations, because usually that's the source of the problem.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. The next question is from Chad, who first of all starts by saying, I host on SiteGround and have for many years. Support is great. I've been reluctant to use their caching service for improving speed because I was concerned it might not work well with the Guru plugin I use on Joomla. So Guru is an extension by iJoomla. It's a learning management system, which coincidentally is something that we've been looking at the moment. I am interested to hear more and if any conflict might occur. So perhaps you could answer that more generically, because maybe you're not familiar with that particular extension, but do you think people are likely to run into trouble with caching with certain extensions, and if so, what do they need to look out for?
Well, basically, I mentioned that on our Joomla website that we configured to use the super cacher, we install a special plugin which communicates with the reverse proxy setup. And this plugin has been tested with various Joomla extensions, and it can actually invalidate also components data. So for example, if you have a Condena forum or virtual mart website, the extensions also will be flushed from the cache if that's needed. Well, I would like to say that if there is a plugin for Joomla which is not working properly with our setup, we will do our best to change the software and actually configure it in a way so that this plugin would work. So I advise him to enable super cacher, and if he finds any problems with the software, with his website, with some links that do not work, post a ticket and we'll do our best to help him.
Okay, that sounds fair enough. Sean asks, how do you test a website for speed? What is the best way? Well, you actually did mention a couple of sites. I'll just quickly put them in the chat again, but they will be in those slides that we'll make available. So the ones that I'm familiar with are Google PageSpeed and Why Slow. I think you mentioned a third one there as well, but they're in the chat there right now. Same question from John.
Well, okay, so basically, if you have Google Chrome installed on your computers, you can right-click on any website and then click Inspect Element. Well, the Google Chrome website has built-in functionality which is called audits or something similar in the new versions of the software. You can use this to reload the site, and then Google Chrome will actually tell you if your website needs to be optimized. The same software is used by one of the tools which is mentioned on the presentation. So that's one of the ways. The other one is to access the other tool which I mentioned, uSlow. It's very popular and it is also available as an extension for Firefox and Google Chrome, and you can install it, reload the page, and the extension will simply generate a report for you which you can check and see the points that you have to optimize at your website. So for example, if compression is not enabled, you will see that as a problem, and then you have to enable it, ask your hosting provider, or search for a different solution.
Okay, all right, good. Thanks for that. This is a longer one. Martin's asking about your automatic updater. Oh yes, okay. This isn't really a speed question, but you've asked the question, so let me go through it. The SiteGround automatic updater only works when you install Joomla first via cPanel. I usually install using Rocket Theme Launcher, which comes with the template and Joomla on one package. How to keep Joomla up to date in this case? Well, it depends on which version of Joomla you're using, Martin, but the later versions. Daniel, do you remember when did the automatic updates come in? It was certainly 2.5. Wasn't it even on 1.7? There's an update facility built into Administrator?
Well, I think that we're not talking about the automatic updater which is available in the administrative area.
No, they're talking about the cPanel one. No, I understand that. But I'm saying don't worry about updating in cPanel. Do it via Administrator would be the better advice, wouldn't it?
Well, no, there is another solution. Actually, the automatic upgrade feature which we offer allows you to add additional Joomla applications to the list of sites that should be upgraded. So when you access it, there is a button, add an URL, and you can type your domain name / the exact location, subfolder or subdomain, and then the interface will simply add your application to the list of sites that should be upgraded. So even if the application is not installed directly from the cPanel, you can still use the automatic software upgrader.
Okay, so even if it was installed using a quick start package like I think they call it Rocket Launch or something, Rocket Theme Launch?
Yes, there is no problem to add your website to the automatic upgrade tool.
Okay, Very good. Powell asks, how much faster in percentage Joomla will be after enabled gzip? I think you've pretty much covered that as you gave some time differences, so it's pretty significant though, isn't it?
Well, yes. Yes and no, but in most of the cases when compression is enabled and you have a lot of CSS and JavaScript files loaded, then maybe something between 30 and 55%, depending on the website. So, for example, if you have just images on your pages, you may not see such an increase.
Right, okay. Ellen's asking also something about gzip. Why aren't gzip and cache default settings? What's the downside? Well, I guess gzip, you did cover this. I know earlier on it wasn't set as default because it required, do you call it an Apache module?
Well, actually, gzip is the Apache module which compresses the data before it is delivered to the client's web browser. I believe that the default settings that we're talking about is the Joomla settings that simply can be enabled from the system administrative area. But gzip provides many more functionalities, and the module can be used to specify different rules for compression. So the default settings work out of the box, basically, but if you need some specific setup, then you can contact your host and ask for the current setup of the gzip which is installed, or mod deflect, which is basically the same for different versions of Apache. So you can always edit the htaccess files and add additional rules to those files. Joomla uses a basic configuration which basically works for most of the sites, and sometimes when additional rules are added, your website can be affected in other negative ways. That's why the default setup is always the best thing to do.
Okay. I guess there would be a small percentage of hosts that don't actually have the gzip module enabled, and therefore the gzip settings in Administrator are not turned on by default. Would that make sense?
Well, yes, actually this makes sense, and in this case the bad thing here is that Joomla will most probably still enable mod gzip from the administrative area, but it will not work. So the next thing such hosts can do, and actually what you can do, is to Google for gzip online checker. There are plenty of websites that offer this service, and type your domain name, and then the tool will tell you if actually content is compressed. If it's not, then it's your host's fault, so you have to contact them.
Okay. The second half of the question, though, is about the cache, or cache, depending how you pronounce it. What's the downside to enabling the cache? I think that's a great question.
Well, yeah, indeed, that's a great question. So, for example, cache is pretty useful when you have a lot of visitors that are actually guests. So if you have, for example, 100 visitors that have their own accounts, you don't want them to see cached content. So all of the pages that they see should be up to date. You don't want to deliver cached content to logged-in users, because in most cases, logged-in users are actually the people who are most likely to purchase some services or products from your website. And just guest users browse your website, and you can serve cached content to them, because it is not so important for guest users to see a page which has been edited 5 or 10 minutes ago. Another disadvantage of cache is that I have seen some hosts that do not properly enable the Joomla cache, and in such scenarios there are thousands of files in the cache folder of the Joomla application, and this actually slows down the Joomla website. So Joomla cache should be cleaned regularly in order to avoid such problems. And if you have many logged-in users and you still need to use caching, then you can change the cache settings from the Joomla administrative area. I actually said that caching should be set to conservative caching, but there are other options, and if you need to deliver cached content to your logged-in users, then you can check the documentation. It's described in there.
Right, gotcha. Okay, good, thanks for that. I've got another general type question. Maybe I'll take this one. Christian asks, what is better, to have a website Joomla in root server/public HTML or server/public HTML/my site folder? Well, I don't know. I don't think there's any technical advantage on either option, but unless you've got a particular reason to have your Joomla site in a separate folder, then I would always put it in the root. Why most people create it in a separate folder is for development purposes. So if with your hosting provider you only have the ability to have one account, then you might build a Joomla site in a separate folder called something like Joomla and then move it to your root folder when you're finished. So correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but I can't think of any technical reason why you would put it in a separate folder as opposed to the root folder.
Well, you're absolutely right, and in terms of speed optimization, it has nothing to do with that, but what I can think of is security measures, and if you share the server with other accounts, then you can actually give access to your developers only to the subfolder so that they can manage the site for you, and still you will be able to access the rest of the folders. Pretty much that's it.
Okay. Here's another good one. John asks, how does SiteGround do the htaccess magic? I think is how you described it. Is it done through the .htaccess file or another way?
Well, actually on our servers there is a global configuration file for some of these rules, and we decided that there is no need for our clients to manually edit the htaccess files and add the rules themselves. So we created a separate configuration file. We added similar directives to this file, and then we included this file for all the websites. So all the websites on our servers use this code.
Okay, great. Oh boy, I'm going to go with Slawomir. Forgive me, I'm doing my best with my pronunciations. I'm not even going to try the surname. Concerning .htaccess, I'm using Joomla 1.5. Is the proposed code applicable for me?
Well, yes, the proposed code is applicable, but you have to make sure that the Apache modules expires and deflate in our case are available on the server. What our client here can do is to contact the hosting provider and tell them, here's the code that I would like to use. Please put it in my htaccess file so that I can test it. And if no errors are displayed, then it works. If one of the modules, if one of the Apache modules which executes the htaccess code is not available, then you will see an error, maybe an internal server error or something similar.
Okay. All right. We've got a couple of questions along these lines. Jennifer asks, are there situations where using the JCH optimization extension might break your site? You've more or less covered that. I think your answer is everything should work, but test it first. Would that be right?
Well, basically yes, but I would like to share some particular problems, and I have personally installed JCH on many websites, and usually the most common problem is that when JavaScript files are combined, some particular template functionalities may not work as expected. For example, if you have a contact us form and you have a JavaScript file which validates email addresses, then it is possible for the JCH plugin to actually remove some of the valid JavaScript code. And then, for example, your contact page may not work as expected, but this is very easily solved by configuring the JCH plugin under the Advanced tab to exclude certain files from this process. And if you manage to find out the exact JavaScript files that are not properly combined, you can actually tell JCH, okay, don't combine those files, and you can combine the rest of them.
Yep,
so basically, this is one of the problems, and another one could be something similar related to CSS files, but nothing that I can think of right now.
Right, all right, good. Pal wants to clarify something, and I'm not quite sure that this is what you meant. He says, Daniel said better not to use external content, but it's not really true because it's good to use jQuery from Google servers, or he adds later, or fonts. I don't really think that's quite what you meant, is it? For example, if I needed external content, say, such as an image from a third-party site, it would be far better for me to download that image and install it on my site rather than reference that image on a third-party site, which would require another lookup. There probably are situations where it is better to have external lookups. What's your thinking on that?
Well, actually, JavaScript files, CSS files, and images are the so-called static resources. So when you add an image or the jQuery JavaScript files from Google, these files are downloaded from their servers directly to the web browsers of your visitors. And this is not what I meant, sorry for the confusion, but I actually wanted to emphasize something else. So let's say that you have a plugin on your Joomla website which connects to a remote server in order to display some statistics, for example. Or you have a social media plugin, and this social media plugin is configured to connect, for example, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and some other websites. And when these plugins access the remote servers, the data which should be transferred to your website is dynamically generated. That is why this is called these are dynamically generated resources. And if the server which should generate the data for you, so most probably the remote server uses MySQL or another database, and if the database is not responsive, then your website will simply wait for response, and eventually it will not load. This is not valid for JavaScript files. You can include JavaScript files, but of course do not load 100 JavaScript files because this will affect the loading speed.
Yep, gotcha.
So, I believe that was clear enough, but if there's something else, I would like to clarify again. No problem with that.
Okay. Let's see next. There's quite a lot here. You didn't want to do anything tonight like, oh, I don't know, sleep or anything, did you? There's a lot here. We'll keep going, see how we go. I think we'll probably get a lot of duplicates. Let's see now. I think we've covered this. There's a few people asking about, are there any side effects? Would it affect Joomla code or scripts? So I think Joseph sort of adds on this. How about, are there going to be any issues with attacks from hackers? It doesn't expose your site or make your site any more vulnerable by doing this, or are there anything there to consider?
Well, basically vulnerabilities are exposed every day, and this is not directly related, but if you have any doubts, then you should always check the access logs on your server, and most people don't know how to do that, or they don't have access to the logs. You can ask your support team to check them for you, but basically it's not related, or not entirely related to this.
Sorry, Daniel, I just tripped on something here. All right. Good, thank you. The next one is, I don't know if this again relates to speed at all, but what about MySQL and MySQLi? People who go through the installation process will probably see an option to choose either MySQL or MySQLi during the installation. Again, my understanding is you choose MySQLi if your host provides that facility. Is that a speed issue?
Well, basically it depends on the server setup, but my advice is to always choose MySQL. It's some kind faster because most of the MySQL setups have this option enabled by default, and the rest of the queries which use the other handler are have lower priority. And in addition, I would like to say that PHP 5.4 uses another option which is called PDO MySQL, and this is even better. So if you are using PHP 5.4, then use PDO MySQL, but MySQL is so far one of the best implementations.
Okay. I'm just still going through these to see if there's any double up. Can I get a copy of the presentation? Yes, we'll try and get these slides up and the video up. Yeah, maybe talk a little bit more. Oh, you've sort of covered this. If you enable Joomla cache, do you have to clear the cache to see your edits every time you edit the page?
No, actually, no. Well, there is a cache time limit, and by default it is set to 15 minutes. So any cached pages will be automatically removed from the cache when 15 minutes lapse. And you can change it, of course, from the Joomla administrative area. But if you make a change from one of your articles or categories, then yes, you have to clear the cache so that you can explicitly say that this content should be removed from the cache.
Okay. Something I tend to do is, if I've got a lot of edits and I want to see the edit immediately, is just to temporarily turn off the cache feature and then turn it on when I've finished editing. It means that during that time people might get a slightly lesser experience, but that's one thing that I do. Right, I'm just going to...
It's always an option.
Yep. There are a number of questions here. We might wrap it up soon, and if there's anything that's very specific to your circumstances, we might contact you directly. Let me just quickly run through these, though, and see if there's anything that really stands out. Are these optimizations offered for free to your customers?
Well, yes, the Super Cacher is offered for free. We also have a free plan for our Cloudflare CDN. And basically, you can enable all of these directly from the cPanel. We have tutorials that our customers can check. And if there is something which is not clear, you can always contact the support team, and we'll do our best to provide information how to use the plugins or how to configure your Joomla application to use all the settings mentioned in the presentation.
Okay. There's another good one here. I've heard that you should position the system cache plugin in the last position. What do you think?
Well, that's not entirely true. Well, why I say entirely? Because actually there are additional cache plugins that can be installed, and if your Joomla application uses such plugins, then you have to make sure that just the system plugin is enabled. For example, there are templates that use their own cache, and you should either enable the cache system which is provided along with the template, or you should use the Joomla cache system.
All right. A number of people are asking, can they get the presentation? Yes, we're going to do our best. The system that we use for these webinars does have a recording feature. It doesn't always work so well, so that's why I never like to say yes, but we will do our best. Folks, there's lots of questions, and we're going to be here for a good 2 hours if I go through all of them. So what I'm going to do is wrap things up at this point and suggest that if there is anything that's specific, that the SiteGround team or myself will get back to you personally. And I'll just mention a couple of things as we finish up. First of all, I'd like to remind you that when you jump off the webinar, you will be asked a quick survey, and it would be a terrific help to us to just spend a minute or two answering those questions. It will help us for any future ones. And speaking of future ones, we do in fact have something else planned about a week from now. So this is in East Coast US time on Tuesday, April the 23rd. We're going to swap seats, and this time I will be presenting a webinar for you, and it will be hosted by SiteGround on how to get higher rankings for your Joomla site. So if you've ever wondered about SEO for Joomla, I'm going to try and do my best to answer all of those questions. One of the things that Joomla sometimes get a bad rap for is its search engine friendliness, and certainly out of the box it's not as good as some other platforms, but once you know where to go and what to change, it's relatively easy to work with. And so I'll put together a presentation about the same sort of format, 40-45 minutes plus questions afterwards, so please join me for that one. You will get a link to this in the email that comes to you tomorrow. If not, if you miss that for some reason, you'll find an announcement on my website, and I'm sure SiteGround already has an announcement in their blog, so go and have a look at that. Once again, I'm going to try and get this video up onto YouTube. Please feel free to subscribe to our respective YouTube channels. You can do that by going to youtube.com/user followed by the username, which is either SiteGround or, in my case, /build a Joomla website. And that's everything on my list. And so I'll wrap it up there. Once again, please consider getting the SiteGround offer, which is only available to webinar attendees for a very short time, $2.95 a month, and consider jumping in for our training course here, which is currently at a lifetime subscription. Hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Look forward to joining you on the next one, and enjoy your evening or day, depending on your part of the world. Thanks again. My name is Richard Pearce, and I'll see you next time.